What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. It is finally time to do a high-powered 72-volt build on our Talaria XXX. We've been waiting for this forever. We've been waiting for a battery to come out for this bike, and it finally has. Except for that we have one problem, and that's that I don't have it here in my hands, and that's because it's stuck between California and Utah on a FedEx truck, but it'll be here soon. So that means that this build video is a two-part series. Now we're installing a ton of upgraded parts because we think that when you do that high of a power build, you got to upgrade a lot of other things to make your bike more capable and safer. So hit that subscribe button, stay tuned for part 2, and let's start going over all the parts we're installing in this video. Let's hit it. So we have a Manitou Dorado Expert fork, EXT Armor rear shock, EBMX X9000 controller, TRP DHR Evo 2 brakes, E-Moto 250mm rotors. That's going to help us stop Warp 9 pegs, bar mount, stem lock, axle blocks, bar. We've got grips. We have a throttle extender for our tall bar. We've got a Warp 9 sprocket, a Warp 9 chain, or a Renthal chain, I'm sorry. We've got upgraded headlight. Now what we don't have here is our upgraded battery. It is a Charge Cycle Works 74 volt, 44 amp hour upgraded XXX battery. It will be here shortly. We're also pairing that with a upgraded Surron motor, which is a high power motor. It is actually a specific size for a surron, but it fits in a XXX. So we're going to be going over those things in our second video. Now for this video right now, this is not an in-depth how-to on installing all of these parts. We're going to give a few little tricks and pointers here and there. We're going to go pretty fast though, because we have a lot to install, a lot to build. And if you guys are interested in any of these parts, hit up Charge Cycle Works. We have a discount code, link in the description. There'll be a few other links down there for some of these other parts. Go and support them. This is an awesome build we're doing. Let's get into it.
Alright guys, it's been about 30 minutes. We got the whole bike torn down. We got parts scattered everywhere.
Yeah, it did not take long to get this bike apart with 3 of us, and we kind of know what we're doing because we've taken a lot of e-bikes apart. We got the wheels over here. We got tons of stock parts, tons of new parts. Now it's time to talk about our biggest mod here. Well, this has to go with the battery, right? You have to have an upgraded controller to be able to run a 72 volt battery. This is an EBMX X9000 controller. I took this off of my Talaria Sting right there. It's looking kind of a sad state with no controller or battery in it. So we're going to be mounting this up, but just so you guys know, this controller is not currently direct plug and play compatible with the XXX. I think it will pretty soon. So we need to give a huge shout out to Cody at Sturgeon Performance. Here's his Instagram, we'll plug it right here. He sells and makes these custom wire harnesses so that we can plug in the Talaria plugs that come with the X9000 directly in to the XXX, just like this. So if you guys are interested in putting this controller on your XXX, DM him on Instagram. He'll get you hooked up with a wiring setup. Also, if you want to bypass your RFID key, he gives you a plug for that as well. So we're going to be doing that, plugging that in. We're going to get this all wired in and set up.
All right, we got progress happening. Alex is halfway done with the controller install. We got the fork putting together. We got the new bearing on there. I got the whole bar assembly ready to go. Lance got the axle blocks on.
Yep, axle blocks are on. We've got pegs on. Sadly, we're putting the stock shock back on because this spring would not fit over this larger EXT shaft. So that's going back on. That's okay. We don't hate this shock. We just thought it would be cool to throw this one on at the same time. So now we're going to get our rear wheel put on. We just put our E-Moto 250mm adapter on this brake. We are leaving the rear stock brake on for the first video because it routes up over top the motor, and we don't want to take all of that off right now in the first video. So we're just going to do the rear brake in the second video along with the motor at the same time and that 74 volt battery.
Controllers are just about on. Doesn't fit super great.
Not really.
As you know, it's not a plug and play controller, but we're making it work.
I'm going to do that on that side too.
The whole back wheel is done. New chain, new sprocket, E-Moto rotor, all good to go.
It's all starting to come together. This is going to be a pretty quick bike.
All right, you guys, it is the next day and we have been testing. We finished the build late last night in the dark, didn't have a ton of time to ride it. You guys saw how beautiful this bike is looking. The build turned out super sick. Don't mind the skid plate. We didn't want to cut it yet and wanted to get the motor in and that part done in the second video. So now let's talk about why we chose the EBMX X9000 controller to put on this bike and why we didn't just put all our other nice parts and our battery in this bike, which has a nuclear controller on it. And that's because everybody on the Facebook has been saying that this controller can pull more power and go faster than that bike can. So we really needed to test that. So this morning we've inputted all the settings that they are all running, that they're recommending. And yeah, they are higher settings than we are currently running on that controller, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I think it's time for you guys to see a drag race. Here you go.
Okay, drag race time. Reed is on the X9000 on the left. Lance is on the nuclear on the right. Oh, dang. They're like the exact same. Wow. Okay, one more test. X9000 on the left, nuclear on the right. Both riders are about the same weight. Just like last time. That's almost the exact same.
All right, you guys, you saw that drag race and you saw that this bike is no faster than that bike. They're literally like the exact same. And if you guys didn't see our previous video on this bike, we drag raced it against this bike when it was totally stock, and it was like 5% faster, like just ever so slightly faster. You guys can go check out that video. Let's get back to the power numbers we were able to run, kind of the testing scenario that we did to try to figure out if this controller is faster or not. Basically what it comes down to is you have like 4 different settings that you set in a controller to kind of get the bike to feel how it feels and figure out where your battery limit is. So you have your battery amperage, that's how many amps the controller tries to pull from the battery. You have your kilowatt rating, which is your power, so like say 6,000 watts. You have your field weakening, which is another setting that kind of correlates between the two and also allows you to have more top speed generally when this number is set higher. And you have your phase amps, which is essentially your torque. So this is a number that really only matters when you're going slow and you try to like pop up a wheelie. When you're going 40 miles an hour and you floor it, doesn't really make a difference. So the numbers we are running right now is 110 battery amps. If you times battery amps by your voltage in your battery, you get your kilowatt rating, which is 6.6 kilowatts, which is only 100 more than this bike in totally stock form at 6,500 watts. So the people on Facebook have been setting their kilowatt rating on this bike at 8.7 kilowatts. That is pretty much irrelevant when you set your battery current limit amps to 110, because 60 times 110, like I said, is 6.6 kilowatts, which is 2.1 kilowatts less than their setting. But if the controller is told it can only pull 110, it can't pull 8.7 kilowatts, which is like 145 battery amps. So if this is making sense to you, I set this controller, I told it to run 20 kilowatts, and you know what? It felt exactly the same as when I had it at 6.6 kilowatts. And that's because we told the controller in another setting, you're only allowed to pull 110 amps, because that's the limit of what this battery allows us to do before the BMS trips. So again, we're running 110 battery amps, 6.6 kilowatts, because that's what you're running. If you set it any higher, it's not actually hitting that. It just says it's higher. We're running 40% field weakening, and we are running 300 phase amp. So we've been testing these settings all morning. We tried higher settings. We've been backing them down until we have gotten to a point where the battery BMS does not trip. So again, this bike is no faster than that bike, and both of these bikes are only about 5% faster than the stock bike. We also tested the top speed on this bike. We got 51.5 miles an hour, the exact same as that bike, and about 1 mile an hour faster than a stock Lunicycle Talaria XXX. So honestly, there's really no upgrade putting a controller on these bikes unless you are doing a battery as well. So let's quickly get into why we chose this controller for this bike and didn't build up that bike. It's again because of that motor RPM limit. We want our motor to be able to spin up when we get our high power battery system and be able to do 70 plus miles an hour on this bike. That one really is limited to about 51 miles an hour, which just isn't super fast. It's fast, but not fast enough for the build that we are doing. If you guys really do want a controller for your stock XXX, the nuclear controller is the one to get because it is plug and play. It comes with a really nice mounting brackets, the nice display. It is a great controller. However, I think unless you are putting in a battery, there's no need to put a controller on the Lunicycle XXX. It just doesn't make enough difference. It's not worth the money. Now, you can do some custom tuning, but it's just not worth it in all reality. Just so you guys know, eBMX is working on making this controller plug and play, so I know that is coming fairly soon. No idea when or the exact install procedure or anything, but I think it's time to move on to why we chose all the rest of the parts for this bike and why we didn't just do a battery, motor, and controller. And the reason being safety. We don't think that you should run a super high build on totally stock other components. And so the biggest thing for us is brakes. You got to have better brakes if you're going to do 70 miles an hour like we're talking about doing. The TRP DHR Evos are our favorite brakes, and pairing those with some larger rotors, in this case those E-Moto 250 mil rotors, makes a huge difference. Right now we only have the one brake on and the one stock brake, and I can tell you right away, I noticed when I'm pulling the brakes how much more powerful this brake is than the other one. Makes a major difference. So that's our stopping power solved. Next up, we got our pegs, which I think make a huge difference. You got to put these on no matter what, even if you're not doing a high-powered build. Pegs are a game changer. Warp 9 has the best pegs in the business. We like our tall riser bar, and we paired it with their direct mount stem here. Just adds a little bit more comfort, a little bit of a higher rise, keeps everything straight and sturdy. Moving back to axle blocks, we love these because they allow you to adjust your wheel a lot easier. You can also take your wheel in and out and swap to different wheel sets a lot better. The stock fork that comes on this bike is only rated to about 40 miles an hour, which the bike already exceeds by 10 right out of the box in stock form, and so we don't want to do 70 on that fork. It's a pretty weak fork as that goes. This Manitou Dorado is an excellent fork for a lighter build like this. Now, I was running this fork on my 170 pound fully built Talaria Sting. It was a little bit on the soft side, a little bit on the flexi side, but on this 130 pound bike, yes, we weighed it, 130 pounds the way it sits, it feels amazing on there, and it's going to be great for a street build, and it's rated to some higher speeds. We put on this upgraded headlight because the stock one kind of sucks, so we're testing that one out. We did do an upgraded Warp 9 rear sprocket and a non-O-ring chain. This is the same size sprocket as stock. We like that size for the street build, but that is going to be beefier, and again, non-O-ring chain, just a little bit better in this case. Huge thanks to Lunicycle for the red XXX. Huge thanks to Charge Cycle Works for a lot of these other components, and especially the battery, and then Warp 9 for making all these amazing parts, making this video possible. We are super excited for part 2 of our video, where we actually install the battery, install the motor, and turn the power way up and see what this XXX is capable of. So you guys better hit that subscribe button. Our second video, part 2, will come out a week after this one. And thanks for watching, you guys. We'll catch you next video. Hope you enjoyed it. See ya.